So I saw this hilarious meme of we need a slur to describe people who use ChatGPT for everything. So AI is having a profound impact on our society. And the tricky thing about it is that the impact varies, right? So if you're a CEO, or you guys may have heard about how this company is like, they're going to replace 30% of their workforce with AI. Students have stopped writing essays because thankfully we have AI now. And on the flip side, there are a lot of people who are terrified of AI, right? What if I'm one of the 30% of people that AI is going to get rid of in my job? So today we're going to talk about the impact of AI on your brain. TLDR, the more you use AI, the more your brain will rust. So let's start with a couple of really, really important misconceptions. So the first misconception that I want to address is that AI gives us access to a lot of information and AI knows everything on the planet. I actually think this is not the case at all. If you are knowledgeable about a particular subject and you talk to AI about that subject, you will quickly discover that AI doesn't know much at all. So this is kind of weird, but I want y'all to think about this for a second. What we saw with Google was very similar. So when Google came out, everyone was like, there's no point in learning anything because all of the information on the planet is at our fingertips. I can just do a Google search and it can give me an answer. AI in Google has access to very little information. It has access to the surface level of information, right? So back in the day when I did a Google search, if I did a Google search, it would say 68,000 hits, and everyone on the planet would see the first 10. So if you really think about it, the total amount of information that is available on the internet is very, very, very high. But the percentage of information that people have access to through Google is actually really low. The practical amount of information that people can learn from Google is incredibly small. Sure, if you spent 5 years going through 68,000 results and reading everything, maybe you could learn a lot, but even then, most of those results are just duplicated blog posts with the same recycled ideas. You'll kind of get what I'm saying? Google doesn't teach you any kind of deep learning. It just gives everyone access to the most basic information. And AI, I think, is even worse at this. So what AI is really good at doing is giving you a surface level explanation presented in a very digestible way, in a very sycophantic way. If you guys didn't watch our video about AI-induced psychosis, highly recommend you check it out. But basically what AI is going to do is give you an answer that makes you think you know the answer, instead of giving you the real answer. And I did a really simple test. I asked ChatGPT, what is meditation? And the answer that I got was very evidence-based. It's beautiful. It talks about the different kinds of meditation, talks about the different, ways in which meditation activates the brain, right? So this may be filtered in some way by the questions that I usually ask my ChatGPT. And then it also had this really beautiful sentence of like, okay, I'm going to remove all the fluff, but I'm going to stay true to the spiritual roots of meditation, which it did not do at all, right? So we know that ChatGPT and AIs will hallucinate. So I asked it this question about meditation. This is the answer that I got. Then I asked it a second question about meditation. I said, what is Vajrayana meditation? And it essentially gave me the same answer. You guys can see for yourself. It talks about gamma band improvement, talks about default mode network. It talks about emotional regulation and using imagery. It gives you this answer of what Vajrayana meditation is, which is really similar to the first answer. And Vajrayana meditation is not what ChatGPT, it's completely wrong. It's not about imagery or emotional regulation at all. Vajrayana meditation, literally, if you stay true to its original roots, Vajrayana meditation is Tantric Buddhism, which is using tantric techniques, certain rituals, chanting mantras to access the cosmic energy of extraplanar beings, deities and these weird devas and bodhisattvas that are floating around in the non-material world. We are invoking them and asking them to help us out in the real world. But ChatGPT misses this by a mile. If y'all are curious about that stuff, this is kind of funny. So I did this lecture called The Weird Stuff, where I explain how all these weird kinds of meditation work. Turned out to be a really, people liked the lecture a lot, so then we did a part 2, part 3, part 4. Y'all can check it out over here if you're curious about how Vajrayana and Tantra actually work from a mechanistic standpoint. You guys can check those out. I try to make it as scientific as possible. But anyway, back to ChatGPT. So here's my thesis, that the more that we use AI, first of all, it doesn't replace a whole lot of skills. All it does is make the surface level answers easily available to everyone on the planet. The more that you use AI, it has a couple of really interesting impacts on us. So the first thing that AI usage does is rust our brain. So everyone is kind of talking about brain rot nowadays, which is like when my mind doesn't function properly. I think a better term for it, especially when it comes to AI, is brain rust. So if we look at this study on critical thinking that was done at MIT, it basically, in this study, they compared 3 groups of people who are trying to figure something out on their own, people who are using Google, and people who are using AI, and I think it was ChatGPT. And basically what they found is that the people who use AI more, their critical thinking is being diminished. And this is something that we see all the time. There is a huge alarm bell being rung by professors at universities. So I used to be an academic at Harvard Medical School, and so I have a lot of, colleagues that are still in academia. I left to talk to y'all because I love y'all so much, right? Screw that academic stuff. And basically what we're seeing is that students are getting lazier, they're getting dumber, they're literally losing their capacity to think. And this is happening for people who are incredibly young. So here's an example from an 8th grade teacher about what she's seeing.
I teach 8th grade history, and I have 110-ish students. 2 of them are reading on grade level. 18 of them are at a kindergarten level. 55 of those students are between a 2nd and 4th grade level. But it's not just literacy. It's not just literacy, and it's not just like lack of content knowledge. It's not just critical thinking skills. It's basic thinking skills. My students can decode almost nothing. They cannot apply inference. They cannot process questions that are longer than a sentence. They cannot connect cause and effect. They can't track multi-step ideas like in a political cartoon. I had a kid yesterday, 4 kids actually, this happened in every class. We were doing guided notes, supposed to be a real easy day, it was review. They wrote down, Maryland was founded as a safe haven for Catholics. It was on the board, they wrote it down, and before we moved on, I call on a student and I ask, hey, where were the Catholics one more time? And these students, what they do is they look at me, and then they look at their notes, and then they look at the board. They look back at their notes. And some of them never answered me. They never figured out the answer.
So I think this example illustrates what we're seeing overall. And it's not just this one study from MIT. Here are a couple of other studies that show the impact of using AI on academic performance. And so this is really interesting. I want y'all to pay attention to what this paper actually says, okay? The findings reveal that AI offers significant benefits, including personalized learning, improved academic outcomes, and enhanced student engagement. However, challenges such as over-reliance on AI, diminished critical thinking skills, data privacy risks, and academic dishonesty were also identified. So I want y'all to pay attention to what this really means. What this means is that if you give a student an AI, academic outcomes will improve. If you give them an essay and they use AI, they write a good essay. The problem is that their critical thinking skills, their ability to write essays will actually be diminished. So this is what I want y'all to understand about the human body and the human brain. The human brain and the human body do not wear out, they rust. So if I take something like a phone, the phone will decrease in quality the more it is used. A physical object that is non-organic and not alive, basically the more you use it, the more it wears out. An organic or biological object is the opposite. If I sit on my ass all the time, my body actually decays. The more that I exercise, my cellular aging can improve, my telomeres will get longer. When we use our body, it gets better. When we use our brain, it gets better. So what we're seeing from AI, the more that people use AI, the more it is rusting their brains. So how do we grapple with this idea that AI is going to replace a bunch of jobs? So here's a key thing to understand. First of all, if you're a student and you're using AI to do your work, this is precisely the kind of job that will be replaced, right? So like literally, if you are using AI to write an essay, why on earth would anyone hire you for anything writing related? Because they can just use an AI to do the work for you. So this is where there's a really interesting thing. The work that AI can do is the thing that human beings will be replaced with. So the more that you are using AI to accomplish your work product, the more vulnerable you are to being replaced by AI. Now, there's a really hilarious kind of like window right now where people have 3-4 jobs, employers haven't caught on, and they're basically using AI to like have 4 jobs at a time. So if y'all are doing that right now, all the more power to you. Not a big deal on my end. It'll end eventually. I think the market corrections will sort of fix that. So then the question becomes, how can I invest my skills in something that won't be replaced by AI? And this is where I think deep learning is incredibly important. The kind of hard learning of reading bunches of books, this is the kind of thing that AI cannot replace. Everyone thinks it has access to this information, but AI gives the same damn answers over and over and over again. It learns what someone wants to hear, and it gives them that kind of information over and over and over again. So AI may ask you about Vajra. Hold on, I've got a text about this, right? So AI doesn't have access to deep, I may have access to it, but the problem is that it won't give it to you. So this is the book that I was looking for, Vajrasattva Meditation, okay? Walk step by step through the stages of this tantric ritual of purification with inspired commentary and full color illustrations. Like, talks about all this stuff. Here are all the Vajrasattvas. This is a book that teaches you about Vajrayana meditation. It's not about gamma band, whatever the fuck that AI thinks it is. Inner Tantric Yoga. Once again, complex text about the nature of Tantra, okay? Here's one of my favorites. Sushruta Samhita. This is just one of the volumes. This is a text on Ayurvedic medicine, right? This is the kind of stuff that AI doesn't know. This book is pretty good. Vedanta Treatise. This is a good example of a text that, like, you can ask AI what Vedanta is, and it's basically like a glorified Wikipedia entry, except the difference is that Wikipedia is actually correct. And then there's doctrine of karma. So you can ask the AI, hey, what is karma? But like, this book is different. This book will give you sattvika actions bring pleasure, rajasic and tamasic actions bring pain. Tamasic actions produce delusion, which is undesirable and causes suffering. That you are not going to find on an AI. Here's what I'm seeing. A lot of people are panicked. But what AI has access to is not deep learning. It has access to super surface level learning where it gives the same fucking answers to everybody. And then this is where people will say, but Dr. K, you're not using prompt engineering properly, which is a fair criticism. So let's talk about prompt engineering for a second. So back in the day, there's a certain amount of, I don't know if y'all have heard this term, it's kind of gone out of vogue, but Google foo, right? So there is a proficient way to use a search engine. And in the same way, there is a proficient way to use the AI, which I totally agree with. There's a skill set that allows you to extract more from an AI than a standard person may be able to. But what is the most important variable to get good information out of an AI? That is your base of knowledge, right? So if I'm trained in neuroscience, I'm trained in Vajrasattva meditation, and so if I'm trained in these methods of meditation, then I can ask a very specific question. Give me a plan for tantric upasana for Tara. Let's see what it says. Look, it's talking about visuospatial imagery, symbolic cognition, limbic modulation. So here's the thing, right? I just gave it this. I was like, give me this tantric upasana. It's like, hey, this is a psychologically safe, non-initiated, that doesn't require ritual empowerment. So like, here's the key thing. If you want to do tantric upasana for Tara, and so what does that mean? That means doing certain kinds of rituals to invoke a particular deity. It requires those things. This is like, I'm going to make you a sandwich without bread or ingredients. This is basically what the AI is giving me right now. So sure, you can use prompt engineering to improve the quality, but the key thing here is that your ability to prompt engineer depends on your expertise in general, right? So you can try to hack it into jailbreaking it and stuff like that. There's that element as well. But here's the key thing. For people who do those things, I'm not sure how they test the veracity of what the AI tells them, because it's so damn sycophantic that it's going to make you think if you tell it, hey, I'm going to jailbreak you, so give me a real response. It will learn, because it uses all of this coding. This is really what AI is really good at. It's good at learning what makes you happy. So even if you think you jailbroke the AI, chances are you didn't really jailbreak it. It has just figured out what makes you satisfied with you thinking that you've jailbroken it. So basically, how do people navigate this? I think this is a situation where in this world of AI, what we're seeing, I work with some coders who are using AI very effectively. So what we tend to see is that AI is a tool that extends your capabilities. So if you're using it for surface level work, that's totally fine. If you want to use it to write an essay, that's on you. You're not going to learn critical thinking skills, and whatever you are learning will be easily replaced by AI. What actually works really well is if y'all are passionate about a subject, if you want to write something, if you want to write a novel, if you want to learn deeply about something. This is the beautiful thing. This is exactly where your market value is. Anyone can ask ChatGPT for a meditation plan. Why do people come to me? Because I have access to information that you can't get from an AI. And that's where the real value is. And as long as y'all are doing the hard work, if you're stretching your critical thinking skills, if you're doing a lot of deep learning, you will be the very value that AI cannot replace. Hey y'all, hope you enjoyed today's video. We talk about a bunch of topics like this on the channel, so be sure to subscribe for more. If you're already subscribed, GG, and we'll see you in chat.